We have Miss Erica with us today. I'm so excited to interview her. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we got that worked out. Um, so, Erica, I'm going to just read a disclosure real quick, and then you can agree or disagree, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay.
Okay, the information provided in this video is for research and educational purposes only and is not intended to serve as a personal health care from a licensed doctor. In addition, the lay viewer should beware of misinterpreting this material, which is prepared and edited for people in which strokes have affected. Does Stroke Like Life Perspective have your permission, Erica, to use this interview on YouTube and its Facebook group to encourage other people along their journey?
Certainly.
Okay. All right. Well, Erica, tell us just a little bit about you. Who is Erica?
I don't even know. No. I've had quite a varied life. I was born into a very artsy fartsy family. My father was first chair bassoonist of the Houston Symphony for 22 years before he passed away at 50 years old in 1982. My mom, when she was younger, she was a singer, an opera singer, training, and she had a wonderful coloratura voice. But she ended up in French as a French professor, and that's what she is now. But she has also also spent quite a few years as a diction coach for the opera singers, the divas at Houston Grand Opera. She doesn't do it now, but she did it for many years. I was a pianist and I was a ballet dancer in my younger years. And then I quit ballet completely and went and got a business degree and got my degree at University of Houston. And I got married, had two kids, um, had a wonderful corporate job. Wonderful. Well, corporate is wonderful. I also had a small healing arts business on the side. I'm a Reiki master, a massage therapist, a life coach. I'm an author of 6 books so far, and I've done a lot in my life. And then I had a stroke, and that
Wow.
kind of just shot everything. But
Wow.
it was actually, I really believe that we create our lives, what happens to us. And my stroke was just my body telling me, Erica, you have done the wrong thing in your life, and you've got to change. And so that's where I am now on a big, powerful journey of learning out who I really am, what I want to do, what's my purpose in life. And that's where I am now.
Wow. Amazing. You are amazing.
Oh, I
You
don't
know
know.
that, right? You're amazing.
I'm just an ordinary person doing whatever I can in life.
Wow, but you've done such great things. I mean, you've done a lot of just wow, 6 books. I've wrote 1 book and I know how hard that was for me. So, I mean, I can imagine. That's amazing. And my hat goes off to you. So tell us a little bit. Let's talk about the stroke.
Mhm.
Tell us about the day that it happened. Where were you? Who was around? What happened?
It was June 10th, not 2011. I was just getting out of my bedroom. I lived in an apartment. I was divorced. My youngest child lived with me, and I was getting out. I was getting in, walking to the living room. She was in her bedroom, sleeping because it was summertime, and usually she kept her phone off on summertime at nighttime because she wanted to sleep. Well, it was a godsend that she left her phone on that night. But anyway, I walked out in the living room with person on my shoulder and just ready to go out the door with my keys in hand, and I collapsed. And I could not figure out what had happened to me. I had no idea what was going on. I struggled, I pushed, and I was doing this and I was doing that, trying to get myself up, and nothing happened. So I said, my God. So I turned over on my back and I realized I had a stroke. And I couldn't call out because I had no voice at all, and her door was closed. Well, my mom, I called her on her phone, and I was, "Oh, mom," slurring my words because I couldn't talk. And she was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" She thought it was a prank phone call because it was 6:30 in the morning. And I said, but then she realized my cell phone number and she said, "Erica, what's going on?" And I tried to explain to her. She's, "Oh my God." I said, "Please call Emmy." And so she did. And my daughter came out of her room and she immediately knew what had happened. So she called the 911 and the ambulance came. It seemed like within minutes. I mean, I was very conscious the whole time. I didn't lose consciousness or anything. I just couldn't move. And the ambulance took me to the hospital, and the rest is history. That was when I found out. Now, I had it. My stroke was caused by a PFO, which is an open heart, a hole in the heart. And it's very interesting because Americans in the USA, everybody's born with a hole in their heart when they're young. I mean, when they're born. Usually, the hole closes when you're an infant, but 25% of us, it doesn't close, stays open, and we don't know it because we don't have tests run or anything until something like a stroke or whatever happens. So when I was at the hospital, they found out that was the reason why I had my stroke.
Wow.
And yeah, and so I went into physical therapy for, inpatient physical therapy, I think for 3 weeks. And by the time I was completely paralyzed on my right side, completely. I couldn't even lift a finger. I was in my wheelchair, running up and down the hallways in the in the hospital, trying to talk to everybody and everything. And but I was in physical therapy. And fortunately, in those 3 weeks that I was in physical therapy there, I finally got some movement in my arm and my leg. And I was able to raise my arm and everything. So I was doing pretty good.
Did it affect you cognitively?
Very little. They made me take speech therapy and stuff, but I did not have much cognitive stuff. Now, I can say that I can't remember anything now, and I can't articulate things like I used to. And there are certain things. It's a very strange thing that it did. It paralyzed my throat, my vocal cords a little bit, because my voice is nothing compared to what it used to be. And but as far as cognitive, I didn't have any problems with that. Not much.
That's great. So are you taking any medications now?
I am on a blood thinner, but that's not because of the stroke. I'm on a blood thinner because I had cancer last year. And the fifth time that I was in the hospital for various reasons, they discovered blood clots in my heart and my lungs, and it was because I have a port. A port is where they administer the chemo, and I have it in my it's in my shoulder. But what happens is sometimes um, a clot will form around the catheter that is connecting the port to your heart valve. So apparently that happened. However, we've had some some ultrasounds, and apparently the clots are no longer there, but the doctor still wants me to be on the blood thinners for a while.
Sure. So I feel like that's good information for maybe somebody else that might be in the same scenario as you, that maybe they don't know that blood clots could form again around that portal, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's good information, I feel like, to share. And that's a lot of what I want to do is to connect people in ways that we can share our stories. And maybe you have information that I might be dealing with, but I don't understand it
Right.
because I'm at the beginning of my journey, and so you said, what year was it that you had your stroke?
2011.
2011. So it's been a little while.
It has. And I went through, physical therapy for several years, just as we all do, and I was progressing very well. And I would say that I was 85% recovered. However, I've had setbacks, many setbacks since then. My thyroid went crazy, and so I didn't have any energy to exercise. So if you can't exercise, then you can't get stronger. So I had that setback. And then in 2018, I had an intestinal resection, again caused by a blood clot. I guess maybe I should backtrack. I'm not sure if I told you that my stroke was caused by a blood clot that passed through that hole in my heart up into my brain. So I've had three incidents where I had blood clots because my intestinal resection was caused by gangrene, which was because of a blood clot. So I had to have 3 feet of my intestine removed. And then I had that setback that brought me back almost to zero, ground zero, as far as my recovery. And then when I had cancer, when I was diagnosed this last year with cancer, that just again it set me back again. But now I'm determined. I'm a warrior. I was mom and I almost died in my birth when she gave birth to me. I mean, we literally almost died because she had a quack for a doctor. And I always say that I was born with a sword and shield in my hands because we fought so much to survive, and I've been a survivor my whole life, and so I guess that may be my path, my journey in my life, and maybe I'm supposed to share it with other people, to help other people that go through their own traumas and everything to help them in some way.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, when we've been through so many things, I mean, my husband definitely has his testimonial for, going through the stroke that he went through in November of last year. But as his spouse, or family member, it was just an additional badge, I think, that we've added to our many badges of trauma,
Yeah.
and it's sometimes, you look at life and it's like, why me,
Yeah.
but then I think I'm coming to the conclusion, because what you just said made so much sense. I guess I'm built for it.
Yes, and I think that and when you said why me, I remember hearing something. There was something about somebody said, "Why not me? Why not me?"
Yes.
Something about your husband. I saw your post today on Facebook. Um, I read something just recently that there are COVID based strokes. That COVID can cause strokes. So he may have gotten his stroke because of COVID.
Yeah, that is what the doctor said, was that it was kind of a cocktail of things. It was the high blood pressure, the high blood sugar, which was untreated for many years.
Oh,
Unfortunately, my husband did not take care of himself, and so he loves food. He's a chef. He's a master chef at that, and so he just didn't take care of himself. And
yeah.
then I got sick with COVID, gave it to him, and then you're exactly right. The COVID caused the blood clot, and that's what caused the massive stroke, and then the multiple strokes on top of that. So it has affected his entire brain.
Oh gosh.
With yours, which parts of the brain did it affect, or do you know?
They call it a basal ganglia stroke. So it was in the basal ganglia, and that supposedly affects the motor skills and emotions. I think that's what it says. And I'm a very emotional person. I always have been, so it just kind of exacerbated that a little bit. Motor skills I can understand because I do have trouble, and especially right now, I have great trouble with balance and stability. I mean, I'm still struggling with my, walking and stuff. Now it's funny that if you looked at me and you saw me walking and stuff, you'd say, there's nothing wrong with you at all. But you're not in my body. You don't know what it really feels like. But yeah, I mean, it did bother affect my motor skills and a little bit of my emotions. It made me more emotional than what I was before, which is pretty damn emotional.
Yeah. Did you or do you use any kind of assistive devices like a walker or a cane or anything like that?
I know walkers. I have used a cane occasionally, just when I was really, really having trouble. But and now see, being a ballet dancer, that has really helped me in grace. And I haven't felt, I fell twice in the hospital when I first had my stroke. And that was just because the nurse and the technician that was taking me from, A to B, they didn't help me, you know, and that's the only reason why I fell. I have not fallen since. So I don't have any issues with that. And it may be because I know how to catch myself being a dancer, previously. But I haven't I've used a cane just occasionally when when I had felt very weak. And it's just a couple of times that I've used it.
So let's talk a little bit about your hospital stay. Do you felt that you got pretty good care? What did that look like for you?
It was wonderful, actually. I don't know if you've heard of TIRR, TIRR. It's the arm of which hospital? My God, Memorial. I can't even remember. TIRR. Is it Memorial Hermann? I can't remember. I think it's Memorial Hermann. Um, the hospital stay was. They were great. I mean, they really took good care of me. They did what they needed to. They immediately found out why I had a stroke, and then when I was put in TIR for the outpatient physical therapy. TIR is well known for their physical therapy, their occupational therapy for strokes and stuff. And so I had great treatment there. I was fortunate because I actually got a private room, and that was not supposed to be that way, but I did. I can't remember why because it was so many years ago. But the nurses were there, except those couple of times that, like I said, one time that when a nurse didn't help me get into the bathroom when I needed to, and that's when I fell. And then one of the people that the technician that took me in my wheelchair from getting a scan or something back to my room, that's when I fell. But other than that, I had a wonderful time. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's crazy to say this, but I enjoyed my stay at the hospital, even though I had a stroke. It was fun. Like I said, I was going up and down the hallway, trying to meet people and talking to nurses and talking to, some of the other patients and stuff. And so it was a very, very inviting environment.
Wow. So after you did the hospitalization period where they got you stabilized medically, everything was good, then you went into rehab. Is that correct?
Right. And that was a TIR.
Oh, the tier. Okay. And then how long did you do that for?
That was for I think 3 weeks inpatient.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you went into outpatient. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how long was that period?
Um, Gosh, I think 2 or 3 years for the
Wow.
first time, and then of course when I had my intestinal resection in 2018, then I went back to them, did it again, and I'm back in it now.
Okay. So what team of doctors do you still see? Do you see like a neurologist? Do you see who's on your team?
Okay, well I have the cardiologist who repaired my PFO, the hole in my heart. I go to him every year to check to make sure I have an ultrasound to make sure everything is still good. I've changed doctors many times since. I was going to a neurologist, and the one that took care of me at the time, and I didn't like him after a while, so I changed. And the other one that I love too, apparently I can't even get a hold of him, so I haven't gone to a neurologist since then, and that's been several years. Um, I am now trying to get another neurologist that is a cardiac, no, an oncology neurologist, because I have neuropathy in my legs. Supposedly I have severe neuropathy, but I don't have any symptoms. But I must have been caused by the cancer, which is common. So I'm trying to schedule an appointment with a neurologist now, but then I have my regular PCP, my regular general practitioner, which I've changed several times. Um, I know that's really, I don't do too much with doctors. Like I have been lately because I'm going to a pulmonologist, but this is all cancer related. It's not stroke related. Pulmonologist, um, and the cardiologist, and for the blood clot, and um, I am going to be going to a neurologist, but again, it's cancer related. It's not stroke related.
Do you feel that your health has declined from your first stroke onset?
No, it's actually gotten better. I mean, like I said, I've had setbacks, but right now, and even though I've had cancer and I've had that intestinal resection and everything, I feel like I am, well, let me step back a little bit. Because of the setbacks, my body does feel weak, but weaker than when I was at 85%, recovered, but it's getting better, and I don't feel like I am weaker than I was then, not in the sense of the effects of the stroke. It's more, I'd have to get into the spiritual journey that I'm in, because that's really what's going on right now. It's not so much the stroke itself as much as it is what I'm going through on an emotional level and on a mental level, on a spiritual level, that's kind of got me sort of weak, but not to the point where I feel like I can't recover. Because I'm really very confident that I will be able to recover from it. So I don't know if I answered your question, and I know I rambled.
Yes, it did. So let's switch gears a little bit to your spiritual journey. How has, because we've talked about how it's affected the physical body a little bit. We've talked about that. What about the spiritual piece of it? Some people believe in spirituality, some people don't. I mean, I'm a believer myself. I'm a Christian. I believe in, certain things. We all have I think our belief system. How has this affected your journey spiritually?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about what I'm writing in my personal essay that I mentioned to you. Okay, because it's really important to me. I believe that we create our lives before we create our lives. We create a blueprint of our lives before we're born. There's even a passage in the Bible that I never knew of that quotes that. And then there's also a book by Carolyn Mace, who is a very well-known author, and she writes a lot about mysticism, and she talks about sacred contracts, where you were, and when you were born, you created a sacred contract to meet certain people, to have certain events happen in your life, certain opportunities to certain experiences for lessons that you needed to learn. And so that's why when I look at my life, I see my stroke as the first big trauma in my life to change my direction in life, because I was not doing my life according to what I was supposed to. And so that changed my direction. Now, this is all, okay. In my journey, my right side was the one that was affected. Now, if you understand the different things about the body and its symbolism and everything, the right side is the masculine side. I was always very, very masculine oriented. Very. I worked a corporate job. I was driving myself into the ground. That's why I had the stroke. And it was interesting because even my back was very, very tight, and on my right side only, real tight. My muscles were extremely tight. And so my right side was decommissioned. My right side was just kind of, it was because of the stroke. I had my stroke on the right side. And that was to allow the feminine part of me, which was dormant, to start growing and emerging. I don't know if this is too woo-woo, but this is me. And then, so now I've been on a journey to try to find that union between the new feminine part of me that has emerging, and to marry the masculine side and the feminine side. And that's and when a person can do that, when they have that union inside, inner union, that's when they become whole. That's when they become who they really are. And that's my journey. I want to become who I really, really am. And I was not before my stroke. And so I decided that before I was born, that this is the kind of life I was going to live. And so I had the thing is, my stroke was not enough because I didn't heed the warnings of my stroke. So I had my intestinal resection, another drop on my knees, because I was still not, I hadn't learned yet that I had to let go and I had to surrender everything. I had to let go of my control. So, and just, go with the will of spirit, of God or whatever. And so I had that intestinal resection. And again, I still hadn't fully learned my lesson. So I had cancer last year. I do believe, though, that if you've ever heard the saying that third time's a charm, that my cancer is my lucky charm, because I feel that it is purging. Finally, I am getting cleansed enough to have to establish that union inside so that I can become who I really am. And that's where I feel like I am now.
And that is, I was able to kind of look up your book, Radiant Survivor. I actually bought it on Amazon, and I obviously didn't have a chance to read the entire thing before our interview today, but I did read through the introduction and then the first chapter. I was able to get that in last night. And you talk about these things in your book. And I think I got to the gentleman that you have in there
Oh, go
first
ahead.
half. What's his name? Oh,
Alan?
well, we don't have to do names, but
No, the man that from Europe.
no, I believe this gentleman had cancer too.
Oh,
Uh,
you're talking about stories that, oh, okay, of each
yeah, the
chapter.
story. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes, I got to that point, and then obviously I ran out of time. But I think your book is very informative. There's things that, I mean, just within the few pages that I read that I guess I just didn't think about or wasn't aware of, maybe. And so that made me think, about some things. So, when did you publish the book Radiant Survivor?
2013.
2013. So a couple years after your stroke.
Right.
Wow. And what are your other books that you've written?
Okay, the first one that I wrote was called Moms and Their Young Spirited Boys, 1998. I wrote that. My next book I had two. I wrote a novel, and that one was a true story. It was based on a true story. And it was my true story. It was a love story. And that was what I thought you were talking about, because I think I mentioned this man in my Radiant Survivor too.
Yes.
That was an incredible love story, and so I wrote a novel on it based on it. And then I also wrote a book called Zesty Womanhood at 40 and Beyond. Um, and then Radiant Survivor was after that in 2013. And then 2016, I wrote two children's books. It's a series, and I'm going to continue. I haven't done any more. I only wrote two books, but I want to. Writing is such a big part of me. I'm just now feeling like, oh my gosh, I need to get back to those books. So that's what I want to get back to. So I'm planning on developing that series into more than what it is.
Wow. Wow. Well, so as far as gonna shift back a little the other way now, as far as a support system, do you feel you have a pretty good support system at home?
Yes. Well, when I had my stroke, I moved in with my mother, and she's been my caregiver since. But and not because I still live with her. I mean, I sold my car, or I gave my car to my daughter, and excuse me, and I should have brought some water with me, but she's been wonderful. My kids are wonderful. My friends, like right now with everything that's going on, my neighbors and stuff, they're taking, like my neighbor takes care of my dog. I have a friend that I don't see very often. We're high school buddies, and she never forgets me. I don't talk to her very often, but she'll always, out of the blue, just come and give me a call, and just check on me and everything. So I'm not one I'm not a social butterfly, so I don't have a lot of friends out there. I'm real introverted. In fact, quite honestly, I love the isolation of the pandemic. It doesn't bother me one bit. But I do have a good support group, and it's really mainly my mother. I mean, we get along wonderfully, and I live with her, and I wouldn't doubt it if we died together. I mean, that's just how close we are. So, and my kids I'm very close to my kids too. So, and my daughter lives in Austin. My son is here in Houston. In fact, next weekend we're going to go visit him and his girlfriend. So, yeah, I've got a good support structure. And of course, my doctors. I've got wonderful doctors.
Good. How do you feel like the stroke affected your kids?
Well, they they were, let's see, how old were they? They were 18, I think, and 21 when I had it. And they still were kind of immature. They, my son was, I think, in college. My daughter was not. She lived with me right before the stroke. But it obviously affected them. But they were always, even though my mother's the one that ended up taking care of me because were not mature enough to be able to do that. They like, okay, when I had my stroke, my son was going to school 8 hours away in Lubbock because I'm in Houston, Texas. And he immediately got in the car and came home. I mean, they were there for me when I had the stroke. And when I needed to move out of the apartment, they were there to help me move. And they've always been there for me, always.
Mhm. Wow, that's great. Let me ask you, do you feel any kind of fear or anxiety about having another stroke?
Nope.
No.
I don't feel that that's in my cards. I just don't. Now, it could be that I'm crazy, but I just don't think that that's going to be where my path is. I just don't. I don't have the. I don't. For one thing, it was very interesting because mine was caused, like I said, it was caused by a hole in my heart. Mine was not caused by high blood pressure or what the various. In fact, that's why I was so surprised that I had it because I had no risk factors at all. But then I found out it was because I had a hole in my heart, and the hole's been repaired. So I don't see why I would have another stroke. And
Right.
yeah, and I'm on blood thinners, so it's. I mean, it could still happen, but I don't
Right.
think it's going to.
That's good that they found the source of what caused your stroke. I know that I've met people and talked to people that they never found the source,
Uh,
and I think that is the unknown sometimes I think can be a little bit scary for people. And I know that's kind of where our journey has led us, unfortunately. And my husband actually goes in next week for a biopsy on a nodule that they found on his thyroid. So we're hoping for, a good result from that. But, I was, I just didn't know if you were, what your thoughts were on that and if it was something you think about or, you know,
I never do think about it. I don't. It's like it's not even a thought. It's nothing. It's nothing that I even have any kind of feelings about at all. I
so
it was crazy. I don't know. It never occurred to me that I might have another one.
yeah. So what do you think, like what's next for Erica?
Well, I've got a lot going right now, and I've got to be very, very careful because, like I said, my biggest problem, a big problem why I had my stroke was because I was working 8 hours a week because I was doing my corporate job. I was a corporate manager, and then I was working for 40 hours on my healing arts business, the Reiki, the massage and all that stuff. So I was killing myself working 8 hours a week. And then I had my stroke. Um, and so I have learned that I have to slow down. I now operate at a snail's pace, and I know if I can't do it, I'm just not going to do it. It's kind of a hard thing to do when you're so used to having control of everything and when you have to surrender all that control and not do like you used to, how fast you were. And my body won't let me move fast anyway because it's still very, very unwieldy. And so I am having great trouble with that, but I understand why. And so I just let it be. I just I try to be very, very present in the moment. I try very hard to really enjoy each moment, which I never did before because I was too busy. I was on the treadmill of life, just going and going and going and going. I never paid attention to anything. I certainly didn't pay attention to my body. And so I've had all these physical ailments, conditions because of it. Now what I'm doing now that I'm finished with my cancer treatment, I am still having to do maintenance treatments for 2 years. But I've been taking a tarot course but I have been doing that for a couple of years, and it'll probably take me another couple of years. I just started an online yoga teacher training program, and my dream is to once I get finished with that program, to be able to help fellow female stroke survivors, help them do some kind of exercise program, do yoga, because yoga is so wonderful. It's not just a physical thing. It's not just those poses and stuff. It's also about meditation and about breathing and just living. Yoga means union, I think. So it's not about just standing in a position, seeing if you can get in a position. It's so much more than that. And because I'm having great trouble with the positions right now because of my body. But there's so much more to it, and I want to be able to bring that and share that knowledge with my peers, my female stroke survivors, and because I've had cancer, possibly even cancer survivors too. So I want to do that, and it's interesting that I've got 2 years maintenance for my cancer treatments. That I have 2 years to do this yoga program. And I have about 2 years to do the tarot to finish it. They're not deadlines, but I'm just saying that I've got this time to be able to do this stuff. So, but I'm not pushing anything. I'm just doing it as best as I can, because that's all I can do. And my biggest dream is to live out in the country, in a tiny little house with my little dog, all by myself, do tarot, do my yoga, whatever. That's really kind of what I'd like to do in my life.
Seems like it all just, the timelines just kind of add up, That's how I think sometimes we know things are like divine purpose, because things just line up. I always say, if you always have to push in life, of course, no matter what you do. I own a special needs business, so I had to push, I had to be that entrepreneur in that world, little did I know that was all going to add up to now myself being my husband's full-time caregiver. But I think that, no matter what we do in life, we have to push through to do it. But at the same time, I also think that when things line up, I just think it's divine, it's providential,
We have to do our part, but my belief is that you follow the divine guidance. That's when you have to really look inward and see what it is that your heart wants to do, and then you'll be guided divinely. And that's when you do have to do your part, and do whatever it takes to be an entrepreneur, because it does take a lot to be an entrepreneur, because I have been one myself, and I understand that. So yeah, but we have to do our part. But I think that really the biggest important thing is allow yourself to be guided divinely.
I agree. So what, Erica, would you say to the listener that has went through this journey, or going through this journey, or maybe just entered into this journey yesterday or today or just a few hours ago? What would you say to them to encourage them to keep going, or what encouragement would you give them?
Just don't give up. It's a very, very hard journey. Take a look at why you think that you did have it. Please don't think that, why. Don't have the attitude, why me? Because then you're going to get yourself in a spiral of down depression and everything else. Look at why look at why you had the stroke. How you can kind of make yourself feel a little bit better because of having the stroke. Understand that you're never going to be the same. Your life has been changed. But what kind of a life can you create for yourself that's a new life? What do you want your new life to look like? Don't go back and constantly dwell on, my God, my life was so wonderful then. Well, you can make a wonderful life for you in a new way. I know it's hard. My gosh, I've gone through 3 traumas and I'm still struggling with that. But I know that there's something bigger and better over there. There's something bigger and better for you. There's a reason why you had a stroke. Look for the answers. Look for the answer. It really is. Turn inward. Find that divine guidance. That, to me, that's the most important. Just find the divine guidance, because when you've got that divine guidance and you really follow what that voice is telling you, that's when your life will open up to wonderful possibilities.
That's awesome advice. What would you say to the caregivers, to the spouses, to the people that are walking the journey with that stroke survivor?
Yeah, I actually did write a chapter in my book. There's a chapter just specifically for caregivers because they are usually ignored, because most of the attention is given on the person that's had the trauma. But the caregivers have just as much trauma. They have to see their loved one, go through this. And I'm going to just tell them the same thing, find out why it is. Why is it that you're in that situation? And try to make the best of it. I mean, try to um, give yourself some slack for one thing, because it's going to be a hard journey. And pamper yourself. Pamper yourself. Give yourself something that will make you feel better, knowing that you have to go through that journey with your loved one and everything. Love the person that you're having to take care of, but also love yourself. Know that you're on this journey together, but that you both will get through it together. And but you really need to I think that you really need to also, again, turn inward and really find some love inside of yourself for yourself. Does that make sense?
It does.
I didn't mean to upset you because you're the caregiver. I know.
Yeah, it's okay. That's what, I feel like we need to hear these things too, because you hit the nail on the head. A lot of times, you know, um, I'm okay with being in the background. I want my husband to get the therapy, to get everything, that he needs. And I think that just though caregivers understanding that it is important, like what you said, we have to pour into ourselves as well, which is a lot easier said than done. But that's great advice.
I remember days when my mother was absolutely, because my mother also was working full time, and she still had to take care of me, and she had to take the horrendous the wheelchair that I had was very heavy, and she would have to pull it out of the trunk and try to set it up and get me in the chair to take me to my massage or to my sessions and everything, and it was hard, I mean, really really hard for her, but she just kept going, and kept going, did whatever she could, But I really do believe that it's very, very important that you also care for yourself, as much as you can.
Yeah. One of the things that I always say is that I believe that pain has a purpose, you know, no matter if you're the caregiver, no matter if you're the survivor, pain has a purpose, and it is a redirector in life. I don't care what anybody says, it will redirect if you allow it to.
If you don't deny it, because some people just deny, they don't want it, they just kind of turn their eye, turn a blind eye to it, and that's when it'll come back at you. You'll get bit in the butt if you turn your way from it. It's there, always there, and then one day it will get you. So you have to accept it.
Right. Well, Erica, we are at our mark of stopping the interview and phasing out. So is there anything that do you want to promote your book here? Would you like to share anything about that? Closing comments, what do you have?
I'm not one to promote, and I guess I should. But my Radiant Survivor book is out there, and I would love people that have had strokes to buy it, because I think it has a lot of good information. I think it's been so long since I wrote it, but I think that there are exercises at the end of each chapter too, to help, to kind of, for help, for additional information and stuff. That, yes. And just know that, there are a lot of people out there that are like you, a stroke survivor. We can do it together. We just can get involved in support groups. If you don't have your own support group, it really does help. I listen, reading comments in my group on Facebook, I'm astounded by, the things that people do and for one another. It's really, really wonderful. So I think that's one thing, is that find a support group. Make sure that you do take care of yourself in every way, possible way that you can. Caregivers and stroke survivors, you know, and try to live your life in a happy way. It's hard to say. It's hard to do that when you're feeling so bad, when you can't walk and you don't have what the the capacity and the facilities that you used to. But look at your life as for what it is now. Don't look at it what it was like before, because that's not going to help you any. It'll make you sad, and you don't want to be that way. You want to try to pull yourself up and try very hard just to keep moving forward.
All right, Erica. Well, I so appreciate your time today. I know you didn't have to do this, and I appreciate you so much, and I wish you well on your journey. And I know that I believe our connection was divine, and I hope to stay in contact with you. And you take care of yourself. And thank you so much again for your time today.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me here. I really had a good time.
Good. Thank you. We might do a follow-up later on, a couple
That's
years or something.
okay.
All right. Thank you, Erica.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.